Here's what's coming up on episode 118 of the Big Seance Podcast. Sara Wiseman.
We're in this really intense time right now, politically and all of this. And the more we get connected, the better it's all going to be for everybody. This book's one way to kind of help people get that idea of like completely connected, all of us. You know, there's no separation. And so I'm hoping that the book will add to that conversation and help people understand the true reality of who we really are. Oh, I'm kind of like want to go get in the car right now and like go drive around.
Well, you know, like the animals that you keep thinking up, you know, you're thinking about her, so maybe she's just waiting.
Oh yeah, yeah, just sitting with her purse. She probably has. Yeah,
she's like, "Come on, I got places to go."
Yeah.
Welcome to the Big Seance Podcast. I'm Patrick Keller of BigSeance.com, and this is a place for an open discussion on all things paranormal, but specifically topics like ghosts and hauntings, paranormal research, spirit communication, psychics and mediums, and life after death. So basically, anything that pops up in my paranormal world. The candles are already lit, so you might as well come on in and join the seance.
Hey, Paranerd. Thanks for showing up today. Some of you have emailed me or left me some really great feedback in recent months, and I haven't done a very good job of highlighting some of that feedback for a while now. And I think that's due to having somewhat of a busy and eventful school year. And you know, that's my main gig. So I was thinking about producing an episode soon that is all about some of our listener feedback. So if you've been thinking about it, or if you have a cool experience you'd like to share, or a question you'd like to ask, now might be the time. The best way is to visit my SpeakPipe link so that we can hear your actual voice. And you can find helpful information about doing that by going to bigseance.com/feedback. But you're also welcome to email me at patrick@bigseance.com. I also haven't mentioned subscribing to the show in a while. We're in just about any directory or podcast app, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, Google Play Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and I often have listeners who will ask me the best way to subscribe to the show for Android users. And in the show notes for this episode, and usually every episode, you'll find a subscribe on Android link, and that should do the trick. Subscribing is going to guarantee that you don't miss an episode. And something else I haven't mentioned in a while. If you never listen all the way to the end, you might not know that my biggest paranerds listen for a special Paranerd Hashtag to use on Twitter. I dare you to try it. Well, our guest today is Sara Wiseman, and long-time listeners will recognize her voice, because this is the second time she's dropped by the parlor. You may want to go all the way back to episode 15 for my first interview with Sara, and you'll find that link in the show notes. Sara Wiseman is a Nautilus Award-winning author and visionary teacher of spiritual intuition. She is the founder of Intuition University and has taught tens of thousands of students worldwide via her best-selling courses and books. She writes the award-winning Daily Divine blog and hosts the popular Ask Sara and Spiritual Psychic podcasts with over 2 million subscribers. She is the author of many books on spiritual intuition, which have been translated into several languages. Some of those books are a book we're going to talk about today, Messages from the Divine, Wisdom for the Seeker's Soul. But there's also Riding the Divine, which we talked about in the last time she came to visit us 3.5 years ago. But Your Psychic Child, The Intuitive Path, Living a Life of Gratitude, The 4 Passages of the Heart, and Intuition, Cancer, and Miracles. An award-winning singer-songwriter, she's released 4 healing music CDs with her band, Martyrs of Sound. to the parlor, Sara.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here on Big Seance.
I just really jumped in, didn't I?
Yeah. No time like the present.
I know. You and I last talked about 3.5 years ago, way back in episode 15. And we chatted a little about this a second ago. But what I want you to know is that this was one of the first episodes where I was really starting to kind of feel a groove, and the energy that Sara brought to our conversation was just so light and beautiful, and we laughed, and I fell in love with her voice, and I just thought, I could do this every day, and it gave me such confidence, and I really want to thank you for that, Sara, because I think back very fondly to episode 15.
Well, I do too. And I had a great time on that episode. And that's why I'm just really excited to be back. So we're going to have a lot of fun. It'll be great.
Awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah.
So, but definitely new listeners should go back to episode 15. We're going to talk about Sara's latest book, her newest book, but in episode 15, we talked about her book, Writing the Divine. We talked about a lot of things, actually, but we talked about connecting to the divine. There was a spiritual awakening that changed her life. That was very interesting. I listened back to this episode this morning, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. And we talked about what channeled and automatic writing looks like, in the modern world, and finding your spirit guide. Do you have to be psychic to channel? How do you interpret the message you've channeled from the divine, and what is manifesting? And then, of course, who can forget? Of course, I don't think I played this until a later episode, but you may have heard the bat story. And yes. I will never, ever in my life forget the bat story. And even more than the story, I think this is so silly, but the ginormous busted out laugh that Sara, just rolls into right after she tells the story. I could play that over and over and over again. It's such a feel good, sound bite. I think that was in a Halloween episode that we did soon after your episode, but I might even sneak it into this episode so people can hear it again. Such a good story.
Hi, everyone. This is Sara Wiseman. I want to tell you a Halloween story that did not happen on Halloween, but it has to do with one of Halloween time's most well-known creatures, the bat. So as some of you know, I am a spiritual teacher and intuitive, and I always pay attention very greatly to how the animal world shows up in my life as a sign or as a totem. And I also live deep in the country. I live in the woods with maples and firs and kind of overlooking the Willamette River. And it's a beautiful, beautiful, lovely place in the summer in the day, and in the autumn in the day. And then in the autumn in the evening, this thing happens at our house as we're in the trees over the river. And the bats start to fly under the carport. And the bats start to fly under the eaves because it's nearing autumn. It's nearing Halloween. And the bats, that's the time when the bats are around here. So it's beautiful, the leaves coming down in the day. And then in the night, you have to be very careful to sort of scoot into the house, making sure the screen door quickly closes and the second door is closed so that no bats so quickly just flit in. So a little while ago, as we near Halloween, my husband had to go back home to Detroit, Michigan for a little while. And I was at home, just me and my daughter. And we were doing pretty good on the whole bat thing at night, because if you've ever had a bat in the house, it's not something you want to experience by yourself. So anyway, I thought we were good, and my daughter was downstairs in her room. I was upstairs in my room, and I just had this funny feeling at the back of my neck all day, like, gosh, I hope there's not a bat in the house, or, ooh, I just really have never dealt with a bat by myself, and I don't want to do that by myself now. Just that little tingle or prickle at the back of your neck or down your spine that's just kind of like, there's something here. There's something here, and I can't see it, and I can't notice it, but I have this sense. So that night I went to bed. It was actually a giant, big full moon, fall full moon. I don't know if it was the harvest moon, but it was definitely something that reminded you of that. Went to sleep. Around 3 a.m, I heard this sound of what I thought was a bird outside the window, kind of thumping against the screen above my head. And then I just sort of put the covers over my head and sort of started sweating. Like, okay, hopefully that's a bird or a raccoon or squirrel out there. Remember, we're deep in the country. Lots of things are up at night. And then I poked my nose out again, and I realized that there was no bird outside the screen, and there was no squirrel outside the screen, and there was no raccoon. There was a bat that was flying around the bedroom in which I was sleeping by myself. And the bat was flying over my head and thumping against the screen, trying to get out to the fresh air. And so I sort of freaked out quite a bit. I spent almost 30 minutes with my cell phone under the covers while the bat flew overhead, swooping and swooping all around the bedroom. And then after a while, it would go into the living room or to the other rooms, then it would come back. And I realized that the universe, or the divine, was sort of giving me this experience, my worst fear. Bat in the house, nobody there to take care of it, only me. And I spent 30 minutes under the covers with my phone, sort of as this beacon of light, realizing there was no one to call. There was no one to help. My daughter's just like dozing away downstairs with her door shut. And I decided I was going to face the fear, and I was going to get out of under the covers. And I was going to slink down onto the floor so my head did not interfere with the bat in any way. And I was going to crawl into the living room, and I was going to get a broom, and I was going to fling open the doors of the house into the night. And I was just going to guide this bat out. And what happened next surprised me, because I was terrified to the point of almost not being able to function. And yet at the same time, it was this moment of amazing beauty and clarity. I don't know if you've ever had a chance to be in a room with a bat flying, but they are exquisite beings, and they are so fast. They're like little ribbons of black, like a ribbon twirler, just swishing this little black ribbon all over by your head, by your foot, around the room, into the next room, into the next, coming back. And then suddenly it just sailed out the door. And I quickly ran and slammed both the doors shut and just stood there in the middle of the floor shaking. And I realized that when we come to face our fears, gosh, they just fly out kind of effortlessly. It's not a big struggle. We just open the door and they're released. And I realize when we face our fears too, we sort of cross an edge that we couldn't have crossed maybe a half hour before. And I just went to bed and I fell into a deep sleep, and I got up in the next morning and I was grinning from ear to ear. The Halloween bat that was my fear, that was released by me at 3 a.m. one night with the full moon sort of up in the sky. Anyway, that is my Halloween story. Hope you enjoyed it. don't mess with bats. They could have rabies. But in this case, it turned out all okay. I am Sara Wiseman. Thanks for listening.
What do you mean that story's not spooky? Are you kidding?
Oh my gosh. Well, I gotta say, I don't mind hearing the bat story again, but I never want to see another bat in my life ever. So, so those were fun times, as we say. You know, what I think is so interesting is I didn't realize that timing, that's what we talked about last time, the Writing the Divine, which was my first book. And that was the start of all of this, and now kind of come full circle or along the passage to this new book, Messages from the Divine, which is basically the sequel to the first one. So that's fairly cool timing, and I appreciate you telling me about that. It's interesting to me.
No problem. I thought about that too, and it was funny. I was going to say it is kind of like the sequel.
Mm-hmm.
And, you look at the two covers and you could tell they're kind of in the same family. It's a beautiful cover of your book. And I can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah.
So as we're talking, just know, everybody needs to know, you can check out Sara, as long as you're not driving or anything. You can check out Sara at sarawiseman.com. And she's got information about, we'll talk later too, I'm sure, about different radio shows and things that Sara is involved with, and you can get her book there as well. So I have some listeners that will be upset with me if I don't incorporate our new tradition into the episode today, because we didn't have this tradition when I talked to you last, and that is that I have to offer you a parlor drink, because we're sitting in this imaginary seance parlor right now, and I offer a drink. So what would you like?
Well, I would normally, being a woman of a certain age and a blonde, I would normally pick Chardonnay, but because I'm being offered something fancy, let's see, I think I'll have a martini. How about that?
Nice.
I'll have a martini in a fancy triangular glass. That's my choice. I think I don't even think I have ever had a martini, actually, but that's what I'm going to have. I'm going with the martini, James Bond-like, in the Big Seance parlor. So I'm going to do that. I'm sticking with the martini.
You got it. And I'm even going to put this little swizzle stick in it with a ghost, on the top of it. Yes. or something. That would be nice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're so good with the imagination here.
Nice. I'm going to just take a little sip. I'll only take like one or two for the show. I'll save it for later. Otherwise, who knows where we'll go, but it'll be, yeah. I'm just going to take 2 sips and then I'm putting it to the side.
Well, come on. We got to top the bat story somehow. So,
yeah.
So, we're here to talk about the new book, Messages from the Divine. And so, we've kind of went into this a little bit talking about your last book, but tell us where do the messages come from?
Well, so the first book, which was back in 2009, was the product of, or came out of, I'm going to call it spontaneous channeling. And at that time, it was happening during the day. I would just know it was going to happen. And I would sit down with my laptop and take these lessons or these teachings down. So that happened, it happened in 2008, and then the book was in 2009. Then I had another little smaller version of that in 2012. But then it was, what is that, 6 more years before it happened again, which was somewhat shocking because this really amazing channeling comes through. And then there's a break of 4 years. And then this really amazing channeling comes through, and then there's a break that's even longer. And this last time, it was the classic. It was the 3 a.m. Hello, Sara, get up. No, get up. No, the house is really cold. And I had to get up and go sit in the living room with like a blanket with my laptop, trying to type quietly so I wouldn't wake everyone up. And this went on for I think it was 3 months, every single night, I would be woken up and asked to type in this trance. And it even got to the point I was like taking naps, like at 2 or 3, just trying to get a little catnap in because I knew, oh my gosh, I'm going to be up at 3 a.m. again. It was sometimes I would just sit there. It would feel like I was asleep and this writing was just coming out onto the keyboard. So, I would finish for the night and then I would like go back to bed for an hour. So it's a very, very intensive, interesting. Intensive is the best word I have right now. It's a very intense experience to be awakened and to have this writing come through and to sort of not really know what was happening until it was all, in the computer.
And this came before writing the divine, you said?
No, this came.
Oh, for this one.
For this one. That was the experience for writing the divine. The first book, it was a lot easier entry. It was like in the day. I could kind of do it at will, or, and then this one was much more insistent.
Yeah.
Get up and do it.
So we talked the last time that your spirit guide Merlin was heavily involved in that book. Is he still involved in this one, or has it grown from there?
It has grown and it has shifted, and I would say it's a collective of, I would say, 4 to 6, and these are the classic tall, pale beings. Some people might say it's the Pleiadians. I don't really know. I receive them almost like a collective consciousness, almost like of a council. So there's no individual voice anymore. It just comes through as one voice.
And I can assume I know what your answer is, but in this community of paranerds, there will often be people who will, be very or feel worried for you and say, well, how do you know that, you're really talking to things that are positive, or that there's no danger in doing that? So what do you say if you ever get gently pulled into those discussions?
Yeah, no, it's a good discussion. Let's see. I think one of the ways of sort of telling how things are going in terms of, is this light or is this dark or is this safe or is this not safe, is sort of how you're doing in your regular old everyday life. And I've raised 4 kids and, have good relationships, and I'm healthy, and like all these solid, grounded, earthly things are super, super positive. And so that's one sign. It's like, how's your regular life doing? If you're curling up into a dark hole, eating worms or something, then that's going to be problematic. But the truth is, like, there are many other entity forces, of course, and they do connect with us all the time. And so the main consideration is, are they light or not? And my feeling after every contact with this group is that they're not only light, they're just like extremely high vibrational beings. And I just felt very confident over the years that this is actually a good thing. Like, it's actually a blessing type of thing. Like, it's very extraordinary to have this experience.
I think that's a great answer.
Yeah, it's kind of like what you focus on. What if you're focusing on a lot of dark stuff, that's what you're going to experience. That's never been my area of focus. Has always been on, kind of trying to expand myself and expand my understanding of the universe. And yeah, that's kind of how I see it.
Now, this book that we're talking about is kind of a guidebook. When you started getting messages and, you were up late at night and channeling or receiving, as I know you like to say, did they let you know this is your next book and this is what it's going to be, and it's a guidebook?
Yeah, like they wouldn't say this is your next book. They would say, like, this is your next receiving, basically, or this is your next task. And this came in 2 big chunks. And so the first one, so I kind of split the book up the same way. The first chunk or part is about, the terms that they use is living from your soul. And that's all about this idea of living from your soul perspective instead of the brain, the mind, the ego, the personality. I always stick all those together. Instead of living from that personality place or that egoic place, you want to live from your soul. That's the first part of the book. The second part of the book is also incredibly interesting to me. It's speak the language of the universe. And then these guides just kind of lay out all the ways the universe is always communicating with us in all the different variations that happens. That could be with, say, guides, or it could be in nature, or it could be with animals, or it could be with synchronicities, or it could be with energies. And they just kind of go through like, here's how it happens, here's how it happens, here's how it happens. And I think that that's for people that are really interested in learning how that two-way communication is always happening. It's a pretty interesting look at how the guides explain it in writing.
You've said that this book is ideal for people who are newer to the concept of, spirituality and learning about these things, but also to people who are more advanced. And so let's take the first part of that. How might this be a great read and experience for people who are, for whatever reason, have been pushed into this change, this shift or journey?
Mm-hmm. Well, when people read, say, A Course in Miracles, which is one of the great channeled works of this time we're in from the 70s. So when they read that, a lot of people, it just doesn't make any sense at all. And sometimes there is that aspect of channeled writing, like it's so new, the language is so different. It's like reading Greek. So for people who it's really new to, the language is pretty simple. And then there are little exercises put in that just ask a couple questions and kind of get the gears going, or sort of unlock some of the doors as to what you might consider or think about as you're kind of exploring this kind of, I'm going to call it almost like a new spiritualism or a modern spiritualism. For people that are advanced, those are the people who like Course in Miracles. They read it, they get it, they devour it. And that's sort of what this is about for those people. It's kind of interesting because it's channeled. It feels to me like it's written on multiple levels. It goes for the people who are just starting, and then for the people who are advanced, they've got a whole nother level of understanding that they're going to receive.
I get the idea that for some people, this could maybe be the book that kicks them off on their spiritual shift or journey, like a James Van Praagh book did for me just over 10 years ago, and then cut to 100 books later and a couple new bookshelves,
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, everybody's got to have that book, right? And I'm trying to even think what mine would have been. Well, I think it might have been, part of it was I read You Are Psychic by Deborah Lynn Katz, who later became a friend. And that book kind of, boom, it really got me where I understood some of what she was talking, or all what she was talking about. So that's the hope. I mean, I certainly think channeled writings come through, they don't just come through because they're supposed to sit in someone's desk drawer. They're supposed to go out and meet who they're supposed to meet. So I'm hoping that that's what will happen with this book. It'll find its way to whoever's supposed to find it.
Absolutely. And if people are on finding this information and starting out on, learning about this type of stuff, that they're probably just learning about what you say, spirituality and intuition are the same. And I know you've talked about kind of
right,
growing out of this traditional kind of religion. I don't know that I want to say religion, but spirituality, like in a church building, and kind of growing from that into what we're talking about now, this kind of stuff. I'm not speaking very clearly about that, but explain to us about it, spirituality and intuition being the same.
Yeah. So I've done lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of psychic readings for people. And one of the questions, and I got to say, I'm not actually doing them right at the moment, but I have done thousands and thousands of them. And the question I always ask is, what's your spiritual belief system? And some people really have no idea. And some people also have this really well-formed, idea of what they believe. And what most people that I come into contact with in this field is they sort of believe in this idea of oneness and this idea of interconnection and this idea of no difference in time or space or matter. And obviously I'm not one who's speaking about, say, quantum physics, or I'm not one who's using the language of, say, the extreme paranormal. This is more like spirituality from the feeling side, or spirituality from the heart side. So it fully accepts all the ideas of different spiritual entities, different ghosts and the departed, and all of that is accepted, and it's accepted with this idea of oneness. So that's one way to look at this idea of this new spiritualism. The other idea, intuition and spirituality being the same, like we think when we start to open spiritually, most people have this experience that they become instantly, or not instantly, but quickly psychic. Everything opens up for them. The reverse is also true. When we start to become psychic, we are really faced with this idea of, what do you want to think about the universe? What do you want to think about everything all at once? It's not just this matter of foretelling the future or foreseeing the future. It's the matter of, why can you do that? It's because everything is interconnected. Everything's always happening at the same time in now. That's why we can see things. So the same thing approach from, sort of walking the path from different starting points and meeting in the middle.
So how are those giant nerds who are more advanced, who have read every Sara Wiseman book, how are they going to use this newest book?
They are going to use it, I think, as like a textbook for the entire understanding that I've kind of been, I was going to say building to, but I'm going to say growing into myself over this time. It's like, here it is all together. And the other thing is, like, so we decided to put these little stories in as little interludes, just to kind of, the channeled stuff is fairly serious. And so we put these little stories in so you can get your gossip need filled by the little stories about my life that are scattered through. So you can be like, oh yeah, I didn't know she had that dog then, or whatever it is, or she's living where now. So there's a lot of that funny little stuff in there that for people that are
nosy.
I was going to say for the stalkers, but I really don't want to. the nosy people. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah, and that's nice because it kind of lightens it up, but it also, it just helps people. You read a serious part, you read a funny part, you read it just kind of makes it more pleasant.
When we talk to a guest who we've had on before, especially if there's been any time in between the visits, I always like to, and you may have kind of gone into this a little bit, I'm always curious to know if your abilities have changed or grown, specifically since, I guess, Riding the Divine. Although Riding the Divine was more than 3.5 years ago. That's just when we talked about it. But, how have your abilities grown since you first started receiving?
Thank you. They've grown a lot. Now, let's see. I think they grew tremendously, like at an accelerated pace, when I was doing the channeling, which was a little while ago, of this book. And then I noticed that, for me, what I notice is that there's a really accelerated period of growth. And then there's kind of like a a rest phase. But during the time of the book, so much of the focus was on how does the universe speak to us? And so my experience of things happening like with nature or not just animals in nature, but experiencing things like being out on our little deck meditating and a rain cloud literally coming right over me and raining, like right, not like other places, just like right over me. And that place of nature communicating even the weather patterns. Very, 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 very fascinating. So I experienced a lot of that, and I found that kind of hard to manage because I hadn't really believed in that before, and then it was just happening all the time. Or I would be out in nature, and I would almost become afraid of thinking about a particular kind of animal because, I'd turn the corner, there's this gigantic deer, or there's 3 raccoons, and it became like, I don't even want to go out there because it's just
You've
scary.
gotten just so great at manifesting that you just pull in anything you think of.
I don't think it's even manifesting. I think it's really, it's just the communication is out there, and then the animal, hears it and then goes to see where the energy is coming from. So a lot of those kinds of the natural world things were happening. And then a lot of things started happening in synchronicities. I don't really manifest. I just let myself be let in flow. I mean, of course I have, I like to do this or I like to do that, but I don't really use say law of attraction. I just say, universe, show me where I'm supposed to go. And so a lot of really amazing things happened right after this that were set in motion that I couldn't have even dreamed of. So that was another way, the way that events and synchronicities started to happen.
I think we can all probably predict that you're going to tell us that everyone can do this. Everyone can receive and get their own divine messages. So how can people maybe who have never tried it, how's it work?
Well, the main thing is and this is the part that people kind of don't want to hear. We think we can do it all from our minds or from creating it or controlling it, but that's really not the way. And that is the way most of us have been taught, just like you manifest, you create, you visualize. I don't do any of that. I just simply say, universe, show me what I'm supposed to do by these synchronicities that keep coming in. And I just basically follow, the celestial breadcrumbs. I just follow them and I'm led to. And then so the second part of this is when we stop trying to create, we also have to let go of being attached to the outcome. And that's a little harder because we all want, I want this, I want that, right. I want this. When you drop out of all that stuff and just let the universe lead you, it takes you to, in my experience, a way better place than you could have figured out.
So you're not meditating 4 hours a day?
No way. I'm not a very good I'm not a very good. No, I mean, absolutely. I'm meditating, but not for long periods of time. Maybe in this practice that I do, it's we'll go in for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or kind of go check in with the guides, for 20 minutes. And that is because intuition is so instantaneous. It's just you get the answer before the question is even asked. You don't have to spend a lot of time because, in fact, if you take too long, you may miss the answer because it comes in so quickly.
What are soul lessons?
Oh, thank you. Soul lessons are, so every soul, in my understanding that I received in this channeling, we're souls. We come into this lifetime, and this lifetime is like this giant challenge fest of things for us to figure out. It's very similar to a video game, this lifetime of ours, or we're just trying to go up levels. And soul lessons are these things that we face that we need to work through and figure out. And they could be anything from figuring out a relationship or figuring out how to support ourselves or later on, they might be lessons that are more like, oh, learning to be patient, or learning to be compassionate, or learning to be non-judgmental. So every soul comes in, you're kind of like, hey, here's your soul's lessons. See how far you can get in this lifetime. And each person's lessons are unique to what their soul is trying to expand to in a lifetime.
Do you think we picked them before we got here?
Yeah. I mean, when you come up against them, you're like, I could not have picked this. I did not want this one. But yeah, of course, I think so. A lot of people believe we go to this place in like Akashic records, life between lives, where we choose exactly what we're going to experience. And yeah, I believe that's we pick what lessons would we like to work on this time. And that's why, sometimes people will have these really incredibly difficult lives, it looks like, and some people will have these really easy lives, it looks like. But I don't know, who are we to judge what the person's internal working is with that particular situation or challenge? It's a soul level experience.
So whether or not we plan some of these things or not, you say that the universe speaks to us in a language of the universe, a particular soul language. Tell us about that. What's that?
Well, I've been trying to think so say you look at music, right? Because I know that's something that you feel deeply. And music is it's this language that opens up. Even as I'm saying this, I'm getting so thrilled just thinking about music. It expands us and makes us feel, the up, the down, it's so captivating. And you can learn that language. Or say art, you can learn how to create art that is so astoundingly emotional and effective, affecting your feelings. They just have a specific way that they're set up. It's just like a code. And the universal language of, say, synchronicities and events and guidance, it's all just another code that we can decide to learn if we choose.
That's awesome. And speaking of music, since you brought it up, I was wondering if the Martyrs of Sound have, made any appearances or gotten back together recently.
Well, I live with the lead guitarist of Martyrs of Sound too. So since that's I'm not a groupie. That's my husband. So we are Martyrs of Sound, and yeah, we have been playing, and we are going to play as part of this book tour in May and June. We're going to play in Seattle, Salem, which is where we are, and we're going to play in Denver, and we're probably going to play in Mountain View, California. And then next year we are going to Egypt, and we're going to play at an event there, which is pretty cool.
Up.
Yeah, it's true. And so that's the whole idea of this. How do things happen? Like Egypt, I could have never imagined that. So how do these things fall in? And when you're just kind of following the synchronicities and allowing this stuff to happen, it begins to happen as opposed to trying to force it all.
No big deal. Just chillaxing in Egypt, with your band on a book tour.
And we also got this really cool thing called, it looks like a spaceship. That's not what it's called, but it's not called like the USS Enterprise, but it's actually a domed. You might know what this is called. It's sometimes it's called a hung or a pan drum.
Yeah.
Right? Pan drum. We just incorporated that, and that has some pretty, I don't play that. My husband plays that, but we're just, there's some pretty cool tones there that it adds a really nice vibe to things.
Awesome. So you guys are still creating and producing some new stuff since we last talked.
Yeah, no, we're kind of just playing our greatest hits, but we are hopefully gonna be able to spend some time creating new things this summer, hopefully.
That's awesome. I love it. Yeah, I'm the for the listeners in episode 15, I actually got permission to play, I think it was Ananda from Martyrs of Sound, and I patched that into the episode, and I could almost sing it now because I just heard it, this morning when I was listening to that episode. It's got a nice groove to it.
Yeah.
And you have a beautiful voice, and you said the whole family there, sometimes joins in, right?
Yeah. I mean, now they're a little older, but
right.
Yeah, they all can sing and so forth. They're all good that way. They're all good musically. So that's kind of fun. We have a lot of microphones and microphone stands, and we have a lot of equipment in the basement. That's for sure that we use. Many
looks
musical
cool.
items. Yeah. No, it's pretty hard. It's used a lot. So
nice.
And we're getting better. Like, we have a little mini show tomorrow, and we hadn't practiced for 2 weeks. And the other day we just went downstairs and just knocked out our rehearsal. I'm like, next one, go. Just rushing through these songs. It's like, you just got to get that muscle memory in, to make sure you can remember. So we're getting better. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. Music's so fun.
Oh yeah. You have to, speaking of feeling it with your heart, kind of like what you're talking about earlier, I can't approach music in a textbook kind of way,
Yeah. So once I was at this piano, I don't even know why I was there, but I was at this piano. It was supposed to be like feeling the music with your body, but it was for piano players, like people that would be, like classical piano players. And he made everybody, I just went because I was really interested in ecstatic dance at the time. And he made everybody take off their shoes. And then they were meant to sort of dance around the room. The room had like giant grand pianos all over it. It was at a college. They were meant to dance around the room to no beat, only their internal beat, like not counting. And very few people could do it because they were so entrained on like how it had to be.
Right.
Versus just like feeling, the vibe of the moment or the emotion of the moment. And just a kind of interesting idea of like that sensing of the vibe or that feeling of the emotion. It's kind of related to the whole spirituality intuition thing. It's just like feeling it and going with it.
I totally didn't mean to get on this music tangent, but I love it. And I could talk about it all day long. Where can people get some Martyrs of Sound going on? Do you have a good spot to just find that?
Yeah, well, I think they can just go to martyrsofsound.com.
Well, duh. That's obvious. That's cool then. I like it.
I think it's all downloadable. There might be some hard CDs still, but yeah.
Awesome. Well, I want to talk about, you have some study courses and stuff. You're offering a free, oh my gosh, FREE, free 11-week online study course. And I want you to go into that, but I also want to give you the chance to finish up anything that we didn't hit on for the book, so if you have any kind of closing thoughts for that, and then tell us about this course.
Yeah. So I think the thing to think of the book is as a textbook for what the guide said. It's like a new spiritual thought system. So that says to me, it's a book of learning kind of like a new spirituality, or I've been calling it like a new spiritualism. Again, spiritualism is all about accepting entities and past lives and like the whole shebang that we in this field consider. And it's about kind of applying that to your life in a new way that's not, used to be things were so superstitious, and they don't have to be. When we really understand that everything's interconnected and everything happens now, and then we just like move that along to the conclusions. Of course we can be psychic because everything's connected. Of course there's entities because there's multiple layers of dimensionality that we can see. All of that is in the book. The other thing, so I think people looking for some guidance, like how does it all work? Those are the folks that will like the book. And then for the course, I decided that I wanted to build community around the book. And I've been teaching a lot of courses for a long time, and I decided that I wanted to offer a really in-depth course that a lot of people could take over time in spiritual community. And I really wanted it to be free, because what's the point in having something awesome if people can't afford it? And what's the point in having this thing if people, like they're afraid to try it? So anyway, there's the Seeker's Guide. It's sort of like the study guide to the book, and you can do it by yourself, or you can do it, you could, have some friends and be like, okay, Thursday, we're doing the Seeker's Guide. And it's an online course, and it just rolls out every week for 11 weeks. You just get the book or get the book from the library, and you're studying with other people. So that should be pretty amazing. That starts in mid-May.
Very cool. Kind of like, could one think of it as like spirit circles or that kind of thing? Yeah.
Or honestly, you could think of it as kind of like, like the Artist's Way used to have artist circles, spirit circles, any kind of, it's like a support group. So a support group for people who want to study this stuff. And I think we have almost 1,000 people signed up already. So that's going to be a hardy contingency.
Wow.
That's a lot of folks. One thing I'm really, 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 really interested in is there's a lot of people in, say, not in the US. There was a lady who emailed me from Turkey the other day, and she was like, I really want to be in this other course, but did you know that our exchange rate is 4 times what you guys is? And so what you guys have. And so I'm really aware of these people in other countries who really, really are interested, and they can't get the book mailed to them because it's not international yet, at that level yet, or they have other limitations. So trying to put things, online so they can access, and make it free so they can access it. That's really important to me. Not everything I do is free, but I always try and keep it $10 or, affordable. But just wanting to give this all the boost it could need to, reach people in different countries who might have different exchange rates or different, other limitations.
Sara, you're still on the radio, right? You're doing some radio shows?
Oh, yeah.
Where can we hear you?
I have 2 shows. You can hear me in Seattle. I have an AM show on 1150 KKNW. And that's on Tuesdays. And on Thursdays, I have my mainstay show that I've had for a long time, I think 7 years, Contact Talk Radio. But the easier way is just on my website, just go to the podcast page, and then it'll kind of give you the links for those. And I do, it's a call-in show, so I do free readings all Tuesday and free readings all Thursday for each show. And people just call in with whatever they want to ask about.
That is so cool. So you can hear this voice all the time, or I guess more often than every 3.5 years. You can check it out. I'm so glad that we got the chance to talk to you again and see what's gone on since then. And are you on social media?
No. Yes, I am. Let's see. I am only on. What is this thing you call social media? No. No.
Are you talking about my post office box?
No. So I, because of my age, I am only on Facebook and Twitter. I have not delved into Instagram or any of the other more modern. Someday, but I'm kind of waiting to, it's like my dad. My dad had this chance to buy, I think it was called Beta or VHS the tapes at the time. So my dad only bought Beta, So my dad only bought Beta. He was always making those decisions. He would see the potentiality in the thing that never worked. So anyway, I'm kind of waiting to see, how Instagram goes. Is it a thing
or like my family, we only got the newest technology 10 years later. That's how we always got it. We were always late to the party.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I don't get Instagram at all. I've tried it. We're on there. Big Seance is on there, but nothing's going on.
Yeah, it's a little different. It's more like a little more, like a fashion-y. I don't know what it's for, actually. I shouldn't even say, but yeah, you can only do so much.
Yeah, I hear you. So do you have any final thoughts?
Well, now I'm just going back into this memory of my dad, who also he passed on. He's probably listening in spirit. He's a great spirit communicator to me, so he really enjoys this. But he also bought these, they were like little beeping monitor systems for the upstairs and the downstairs that were supposed to prevent us from yelling up and downstairs to each other. Of course, we'd have to be like yelling to each other, "Did you turn the monitor on?" And the other person would yell back, "It is on." And of course, the whole purpose defeated immediately, but he had some good ideas there. Yeah, I guess that's my final thought. No, my final thought is
No, we had a story, actually. Oh, we were going to have a sequel to the bat story. I forgot all about that. Okay. I almost skipped over it.
Yes, I do have that. It's the lady with the green purse, and it's not a Nancy Drew mystery, or that's what they were always trying to like. So I think the main thing is, we're in this really intense time right now, politically and all of this. And the more we get connected, the better it's all going to be for everybody. And so this book's one way to kind of help people get that idea of like completely connected, all of us, there's no separation. And so I'm hoping that the book will add to that conversation and help people understand, the true reality of who we really are. So that's my hope for the book.
We need some of that understanding for sure.
We sure do. So, okay, you asked earlier if any of my abilities had opened. And also, it's not just me, like anybody on this path, like your abilities are going to open, and then they're going to open some more, and then they're going to open more. But so one thing also that just started to happen for me a couple years ago, I'm not even sure when it started, but I hadn't really been able to see departed spirit as apparition the way that a lot of like people who really are focused on mediumship can. And I didn't really think that would happen for me. I'm able to see departed spirit in my mind's eye real easily, but I never saw apparition. And then one day, and I don't actually remember, but it was a while ago, I was driving around these country roads where I live in the forest in Oregon, and there was this lady, and she looked kind of like Mary Tyler Moore, that kind of hair that goes up at the end, but it was more gray. And she had on like chunky high heels and kind of these cropped pants, and she was carrying a bright green patent leather purse. And she was walking around these country roads. And I just thought I was just driving by pretty fast. I thought, that's weird. No one ever walks there. Like, why is that lady? That lady shouldn't be out here. That's not even safe for her. And I didn't really think about it. And then I think I saw her one other time, kind of in the same spot. And again, I just thought, that's strange. But lately, after this channeling of this book, I have been... I realized that the lady with the green purse is not a lady at all. She's a ghost. And I have seen her in these very odd places. I have seen her with her arm resting on a garbage can like 2 miles away on a different country road. And then when I looked back in the mirror, she wasn't there. And I saw her on another part of the road. Can't quite remember the details there as much, but it's very interesting to me because usually when the departed come, like they have something to say to you, or them, or there's some message. But here's this spirit wandering around these country roads completely out of place. Like, who was she in the 60s or the 70s? Like, out here it was just farmland. So yeah. My hope is that I'm going to see her again. And next time I do see her, I'm going to get out of the car and see what she has to say. And I'm just really, 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 really excited because she's not a person. She's something else. And I don't know what seeing her means yet, or if she needs help or what, but I will keep you posted.
Has she ever acknowledged you?
She's always staring straight at me, just like straight at me. And that's what's been kind of so unnerving, like, what? But it's always been so fast because the car, whoop, and then there's the lady. And, she's been out in all kinds of weather, in the mud, she's always in the same outfit. She's completely out of place. And I do see, I see some Native American, I don't see as apparition. I sense these small tribes in this property, but I don't see as apparition. And actually, I was driving with my daughter. This wasn't that long ago. And I go, there's the lady. And she was like, what lady? So we'll see who she is.
That is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you that these are the kinds of things that I dream about. Like, I've told these stories in the Big Seance Parlor on Facebook, and I have had, I would say, 3 to 4 dreams, and I can tell I myself have wanted to see an apparition so bad that my brain has given me the gift several times of seeing an apparition, and I so think I'm in real life when I'm dreaming about it.
Yes.
And I get so excited about it to the point that I wake up and I immediately start thinking, oh my gosh, I need to tell all of my friends and all of my listeners that I really saw. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they just faked me out. That was a dream. But I can, it's almost like it was in real life because I got so excited. I could tell you what it looked like, what it felt like to be there, and the excitement that I had. And so, I always tell myself, apparently I'm not ready to see an apparition, but the guides and, they're just teasing me a little bit, let me experience some of that in dreams to keep me, patient.
Well, someone that I knew, a spiritualist, I asked him one time, like, why can't I see apparitions? And he said, you can. You just might be, I think he said, you can. And I said, this was way back. I said, I don't want to. And he's like, if you don't want to, you won't. And for me, obviously I'm afraid of bats. I'm afraid of the wildlife. I'm afraid of the apparition. So my thing is fear. I didn't have that giant excitement. But I think one of the common denominators in this apparition is like something like driving on a country road puts you really, really into a trance state really fast. So I was probably in a fairly deep trance state while driving, like a super relaxed state. And so I was able to see beyond the veil without even attempting. It just opened up like that because of that deep trance of driving. That's kind of my thought there, is why it keeps happening that way.
And it makes you wonder how many of us have seen apparitions and don't realize it. Maybe we don't pay attention to it.
Exactly. And so here's a question. So in a lot of my conversation with nature, like, is nature beyond the veil too? Like, does nature see us? Are we like apparition to a tree? We don't really know. Like we're pretty sure animals see us because they respond to us. But what do these other? We know that some of the guides and some of the departers can see us, but like, what are all these dimensions and all these veils, like, and how many can we go through? It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah. And what's she doing in the woods, man?
What do you mean by that? What do you mean? For me.
Yeah. What's she need her purse for? Where's she heading to?
Right. Right.
Oh.
Well, yeah, because and if you think she's from the past, she is from the past because of the nature of her dress. Like, what was here then? I mean, there's only this little town, and the rest was probably, the roads were literally like, like the road where you herd your cows, the cow path road.
Yeah.
That's what it was. So why was she there? I don't know. Ooh, I'm kind of like want to go get in the car right now and like go drive around.
Well, like the animals that you keep thinking up, you're thinking about her, so maybe she's just waiting.
Oh yeah, yeah, just sitting with her purse. She probably has. Yeah,
she's
anyway.
Like, come on, I got places to go.
Yeah.
Sara, you rock, and I so appreciate you doing this again. And I can't wait to, for real, check out the book and to see, what you've got coming up in the future. And by the way, she's got quite a few books out there, including one that I never really saw, and I didn't realize you have a book called Your Psychic Child. So I think I'll be checking out that one. That's always kind of a hot topic with some of our listeners too. You bring up the psychic children and boom, they're off.
Yeah. Good. Well, thank you. I've just had a lovely, great, super awesome time. So thank you. I'm so glad we got to connect again. You're just so funny. It's just really fun to have time together.
Oh, and I can say the same thing for you. Thanks for the sequel to the Bat story.
Yes, absolutely.
For show notes, including links to anything we may have mentioned in this episode, visit bigseance.com.
You can find and subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play Music, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and just about anywhere podcasts are found.
Do you have any comments or feedback? Go to bigseance.com/feedback to learn how to get your voice in a future show. Or you can call my feedback line, 7755-TELL-ME. That's 775-583-5563. Interested in learning how to promote and share the podcast? Go to bigseance.com/share. Thank you so much for listening. Unfortunately, it's time to blow the candles out, but we'll see you and light them again next time.
Your Paranerd hashtag for today is Divine Sara. That's Divine and Sara without an H. So tag me at Big Seance and Sara at Sara Wiseman 33 and use the hashtag Divine Sara. Peace out.